Well, hello everyone, and thank you for stopping by. Let's talk about it, Steph, on this wonderful Politic Wednesday. I have special guests, of course. I got my wonderful crew with me today. I have Dale Frey on board. Hello, Dale.
How you doing?
And how's life treating you?
Going pretty well. Going pretty well. We're getting ready for a vacation. I'm going on a cruise. Rather, it's a business cruise for my wife, so it's gonna be work for her, but pleasure for me. So that'll be
Oh,
fun.
hey, that's always fun. Fun time in the ocean. Well, guess what? I'm getting ready to bring up this special guest. Y'all know her, but y'all don't know her. So I want to introduce Georgina.
No, I'm just kidding. Yes. So you may wonder why I'm wearing this outfit. We recently had the SAVE Act go through. Texas is also considering a bill where conception, or I guess it's considered a baby at birth or at conception. Not, I'm sorry, not at birth, but at conception. Even if you help a woman, let's say, just cross the state line, you could be considered a murderer, even if you had nothing else to do with the abortion. So, yes, I've had it. I may be wearing this permanently. It could be my new outfit. I'll see y'all at Walmart.
Wow. You know, hey, you know what? It goes with your eyes.
Hey, what would my new name be? What should it be? Like, well, should we use? I guess just use my husband name, Off Bustos.
I was gonna say I think it's o
Of
of like
Bustos.
of and then like the last name of your owner. So yeah, yeah, of Bustos.
Hi, my name's Of Bustos.
I can't make this stuff up, y'all. I have no control of what happens on here. It sometimes things when we go live, things happen. She almost made me choke when I seen her. But real talk, all of our wonderful listeners out there, it is very, very true. Um, we lost our rights to vote. So if you're married, I might need to borrow that. You have to have your all your identifications and make sure you get out there to go vote. So it
This
is
girl
what
on this lady on Facebook told me today that the Senate won't pass it. I'm like, what do you mean the Senate won't pass it? I mean, Booker wants to stand up there again for another 24 hours. They may not pass it because they need 60 votes to get it through, but they've got the 51.
It doesn't even matter. The fact is, it got this far in the first place, and that's
right.
what's absolutely terrifying.
Exactly.
Their very concept were to say like, oh, it's not going to pass this other chamber. Well, first of all, like we were screaming when it got filed in the first place. Secondly, the fact that it even got any traction. I mean, let's be honest, lots of bills sure get filed but never hit the House floor, but this one did, and then it passed, and that means it's not the first thing we should still be angry about is that there are people who are literally willing to take away the ability to vote for half of this country. That in itself is insane. Just to even be willing to vote for that, and this is on their voting record. So this is it really goes to show how I remember in the past we would scream about Project 2025, and a lot of those on the right would say, "Oh, well, that's just left wing hysteria." It's
Mm-hmm.
not. We're seeing it being passed right now. This is part of Project 2025. This will literally take away the ability to vote unless you jump through all sorts of things, like whether you have to maybe change your name back to what it was when you were originally born, or whatever loopholes that they'll introduce. I'm not fully informed. Maybe you can tell me, what was it? Do you have to have your birth certificate with you or something like that? I don't even know where mine is. Maybe you can tell me more about the SAVE Act, since we're talking about it. I'm aware of it, and I know that it will take away the ability to vote if your name is changed. But what are the further details on that?
Well, since you started, because that's not where we was gonna start at tonight,
Oh,
but
sorry.
Georgina,
I'm bad off Bustos. Bad off
I,
Bustos.
oh, I'm sorry, Busto,
Osby
Miss
off
Busto.
Bustos.
I'm gonna have to go watch The Handmaid.
Mhm. I've been watching it. I recommend it.
I'm gonna have to go rewatch it again. Well,
Mhm.
Miss Lusso started this today, but yes, you're correct. You do have to show your birth certificate if you can find it. If you
Mhm.
are married more than once, you have to have your marriage license as well, along with your social security card, your voter's registration. You got to have all this stuff. But here's the thing, those of you ladies that are married and you have your passport, that's all you need. So if you have your passport, take your. I will take everything with me just in case, so they won't try to stop you from voting. Of course, you know early voting out here in Texas started yesterday, I believe,
Mhm.
and we got to get out there to go vote for these mayors and city councils and school board people.
Mhm.
Y'all get out and go vote. Go listen. This is not the time to say I don't have time.
Mhm.
Early voting in Texas right now, you can go and early vote in Texas. You can go anywhere in your county to go vote. This is
And
not the time
make
to say, I'm not going to go do it. I'm going to wait. Don't wait because you never know
Mhm.
what might happen. Get out there, go vote, take somebody with you because these races right here, I know the turnout is usually really low, but it's very important because this is where it starts. It starts from the bottom and then it
Mhm.
goes up to where if you're voting for a mayor that is not for the people, then this is why we have these laws in place. If you're voting for these superintendents and people that's on the board school board, this is why we're having an issue here in Texas
Mhm.
because people do not go out to go vote during midterm. This is very important for you to get out and go vote. Let your voices be heard because every last one of us should be shouting from the top of the ceiling to the ocean to where Miss Busto is at. We have got to be out here shouting that, hey, we want to take our city back. We want to take our state back. We want to take our country back away from these narcissist people that don't believe in taking care of who put them in office.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question, Dale?
That's absolutely. And also to add on to that too, I'll remind everyone that in Texas, we're not a red state. Only half the people show up to the voting booth who are registered. So you got to vote now while you can, because with the Save Act, they're trying to take away or hinder your ability to vote as it is. So make sure
And
you
make
vote.
and make sure you're not voting for a Republican because I think in every race around us has some kind of site. If they not every candidate that has a challenger is a Republican, but I don't believe. But I know in Louisville going against what's what is her
Stacy?
name? Huh?
Stacy?
No,
Well, for
Oh, so
Louisville ISD,
she-
there's Sheila Taylor,
Sheila
who's
she's
a
Taylor.
good
Yes.
good friend of ours, and she's a really strong. She's an incumbent. She's been on the school board before, and is the
Mhm.
one that I will be voting for.
Oh, absolutely. But the guy going against her, Ben Hagenboo, donated to his campaign. He just voted
Oh,
for vouchers and against funding our schools. I mean, they voted through the bill, but the bill doesn't fund our schools. So he has been very strategic about making sure that we don't have schools. That we have to close down 5 schools in Louisville. Of course, the guy who's running against Sheila is also screaming that they close 5 schools down in Louisville. But they closed 5 schools down in Louisville ISD because of the guy who donated to him.
imagine
Yeah,
it.
the irony of it all.
I know. Isn't that so funny?
And then they
You
want
gotta
us
be careful
here.
who you donate to.
Mhm. Well, remember, I don't know if you've seen The Handmaid's Tale, but at some point when they do actually take over America and it becomes The Handmaid's Tale, women are not allowed to read. We cannot read. We cannot write. We cannot read the Bible. Nothing. So I just feel like they're preparing for that now because that way they don't have to educate half the population. They'll be ready for it. I laugh and it kind of is funny, but seriously, does it not feel like that?
it
Yeah.
does. I'll be honest with you. I only got through like I think the first and a half season after, because I had to put it down because it was just too depressing. It was just so depressing,
It
especially
gets
to see the
better.
transformation because
Yeah.
it does show at a certain point, the times before it turned into that. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, they start fighting, and now They're in Canada, or a lot of the people are in Canada, and they split. What is I can't think of the name of the town, but anyways, they've split it up, and they have one section that's more progressive, and women can have jobs and they can work, and the other section isn't. But while they're kind of snowing over the Canadians to give them back the refugees, they're still plotting to make it all one big anti-democracy fascist country again, to where women again have no rights. So yay. But now we can move on from off Bustos. And
Well,
it doesn't match my driver's license or my birth certificate. I'll
you're
never
gonna be in trouble. I can tell you that right now. You're gonna be in trouble, but it's gonna be good trouble. Just make sure you take all your stuff with you so you'll be okay. And let me know how it went, because that means I gotta go find my birth certificate and I don't know where I put it. So it's funny, but it's not funny. Some
Mm-mm.
of us don't know where we put our birth certificate. Now I know where my marriage license is at, and hopefully it's with that.
Mm-hmm.
But
My
you
husband's
know,
accounting. He's got everything in a file. I just ask him, he pulls it out for me. I'm like, oh, thank you. I didn't even know I had one of those.
I used to be good like that in some kind of way. After the kids left the house, my husband and we just went relax. I don't have to clean. Well, I do clean, y'all. I do clean my house,
But not
but
as much. You don't have to because they're not
I don't.
messing it up.
Yeah, except for him and the dog, you know. So,
Mhm.
but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I love them both, but I definitely need to make sure I find that, because I'm like, man, we're gonna have to get passports around here. I am,
Mhm.
but
I am.
yeah, let me tell y'all. While we were on air, it was so much stuff that's going on. So we all know that the Pope passed
Hmm.
over the holiday, and the weirdest thing is JD Vance was there, and the Pope and him had a disagreement about the way how America is treating the refugees and
Mm.
immigrants.
Mhm.
And okay, y'all, there is so much conspiracy out there, and I don't know how true it is, but you just never know. But they're thinking that something happened. I don't know, but my condolence goes to the Pope and everyone that's Catholic that loves the Pope, because he was a very good Pope. I think
Uh-huh.
he really was. He stood up for a lot of things that we fought for, especially the LG crew. He stood up for them. He stood up for the Black Lives Matter. Matter of fact,
Wow.
I think Trump liked him very much. All I can remember is Trump, when he first was in office. He and his family had went to go meet him, and they were dressed in black. And I'm like, what funeral were they going to? So I'm like, man, but it would. I don't think they had a good experience out there. But I'm just saying. But
Mm.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's pretty interesting because this pope was actually called air quotes woke by Fox News once upon a time because
Oh.
of his support for a little bit of
Hope
the
was woke.
LGBTQ. Yeah, no, literally, there's a. I have to find the clip. I think it might have been the Jon Stewart show, but I mean like from like a long time ago, where they literally have this line where this guy's on Fox News and they're saying like, "Who does this pope think he is?" Based upon his not going completely against LGBT and
Mm.
all that. And it's kind of funny to say who does this pope think he is when he's the pope. Like you can't say the pope is wrong. He's the pope.
Mhm.
But
Right.
he was a very old man, and we did see that he was falling ill. But it was we will now see who the next pope is. I believe the cardinals are getting together, and we'll be voting on that soon. But we will see what happens next there.
And the craziest thing with that is there's so much conspiracy on there that I was listening to someone's podcast, and they were saying, there was a prediction that he was the last pope. And I'm like, surely he's not the last pope. I know a lot of people are not into the biblical, but in the Bible, you don't know when, where, or the time. So I'm gonna leave it where that's at. We don't know when
Mm.
Jesus is coming back. So we're gonna let it be whatever it comes. When he comes back, you just better be ready.
So we saying there's going to be no Gilead because the Pope is dead, and we're not going to have a second one. So now we move on to the next stage of life.
That's that.
Hey, look, Gilead's been saved.
Yeah, another one of those conspiracy things. They probably been watching The Simpsons again.
Ooh, okay, I got a funny story. When I was working the polls in 2024, there was a lady
Georgina,
who's.
what kind of polls were you working?
I think that every time I say that, I was like, man, that sounds so funny. But it was voting polls. Sorry, guys. So this lady was she's very right wing, Christian nationalist kind of Baptist, right? I think I had gotten under her skin after a while, which happens occasionally with me. And she just started losing it. She's like, I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I'm ready for, God to come and take me or whatever that's called. And I said, are you sure you know where you're going? As judgmental as you are, you may not be going where you think you are. And she's just like, I am not judgmental. I am not. Well, the first time I met her, the first thing she said was, why is there an other on this form? There's M, F, and O. Well, she wanted to know what the O was for. And she smacks her hands down on the table and kind of shakes and says, God just made a man and a woman. So I had to explain to her how that wasn't true and that we have intersex and it's called biology. And I have a kid with Down syndrome, and sometimes chromosomes and things just don't work out the way we thought that they should. Well, then we got into an energy discussion a couple of days later. So, like by day 3 of hanging out with me in the voting booth, woo, she had lost it. But Armageddon did not come. I know. But
Georgina, I can see
there are
that.
people in there voting, and she's just flaring her arms up like this. I'm like, oh my God, you are psychotic. You have to stop. And she just wouldn't stop. And no one stopped her. Not the judge, nothing.
Well, usually the judge usually steps in, but all judges are not the same. Some of them just say, I'm not dealing with this today. But what
Yeah.
we are going to deal with, we're going to talk about this, y'all. Let's talk about Left Behind Garcia in a power game in Washington. So, Garcia is still in El Salvador, and the administrator is not trying to bring him back. Now, there was a senator that flew out there, and I think Congresswoman Maxine is on her way, if she's not already out there, to go make sure he's okay. But I'm glad that he's alive, because the way how it was coming out, it was almost like he was unalive. So I'm glad to see that he is alive, and they're putting him in a cell by himself, and he has a bed and everything like that. So they're taking, I guess, better care of him, because I guess they know now that all eyes are on them, so they have to do right by him. But the craziest thing is the El Salvador president wants to do a swap out. So they want to send him back, but we got to give something. And I'm like, this is why you don't play games with dictators, because of the simple fact is things like this wind up happening. So we playing a game that's going to cost us.
So now he's a political prisoner on both sides.
Right.
We sent him away as a political prisoner. Now he's captured from a different country as a political prisoner.
Exactly.
It's so frustrating. So I'm gonna back up a little bit, and at first I need to preface by no means that I'm comparing this, because this is absolutely insane what is happening right now to something of the past. But for a split second there, and again, what's happening today is so much worse. But for a second there, I was getting deja vu, because it felt like I've seen this before. I remember back in the George W. Bush administration, where someone was labeled simply a terrorist very easily, and they were thrown to Guantanamo Bay. Now, obviously, things are worse today, but it's interesting to see how we had the same arguments back then. There was the arguments of saying, hey, that Guantanamo Bay is too tough of a place. It also, like, legal stuff doesn't necessarily seem to apply over there than it does on here on the mainland. And then, of course, there was this whole question of due process. Now, obviously, things are way worse now, but it feels like the same thing again. So before anyone was labeled a terrorist. Now they're just labeled a criminal. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of sending them to Guantanamo Bay, they're sending them to this other country. And the massive danger here is the normalification of this. Because I tell you, I only when I don't do this all the time, but I tend to do this because only for short periods of time because it drives me insane. But I have some old cell phones that are on my stand to my left while I work during the day. One of them's on CNN, the other one's on Fox News. They're on mute. I can't listen to obviously because I got to do my work. But I'll look over every once in a while and I'll see the headlines, and it's amazing to see how on one hand, you'll see that on CNN, they'll say like, all right, look, there have been officials who have stated that they mistakenly sent the guy over there.
Mm-hmm.
There are those who said they realized they made a mistake. But then Fox News is straight out labeling the guy as a terrorist, or I'm sorry, a gang member.
Mm-hmm.
And it is insane to me to think how people literally live in a different world depending upon which network they follow. Because I know most people are probably not like me who watch both sides. Um, Probably those people who watch Fox News probably only watch that, and they will probably literally believe, and I'm sure do, that this guy is a gang member, and they seem to not care that the due process has been forgotten. And the headlines that we see on Fox News is the Dems are going over there to meet with this guy to try to politicize this. And it's like, well, the spin is absolutely sickening. And the other thing too is we have to realize it's not just this one guy. There was another guy who I think was a hairstylist, I believe, who was mistakenly sent over there.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know how many others are going to be caught into this type of dragnet that Trump is providing right now. You also have to realize that Donald Trump, he wants to end birthright citizenship, or
Mm-hmm.
rather, I know Project 2025 does, and Trump has kind of touched on that a little bit. He's also touched on the concept recently in an interview with Fox News. They were saying, well, will you send other criminals there? And Donald Trump talked about what he called homeborn criminals or things like that. He had said like, oh, well, there's these criminals who push people in front of a train on the subway in New York, and maybe we should send them over there too. What we're seeing here is a dictator right here today. Because if Donald Trump can just pick someone he doesn't like and just label them a criminal, just like how the Bush administration labeled anyone a terrorist, then who's to say that Trump can't do the same thing against his own political opponents, for example, or other people who run in politics? We've seen Vladimir Putin basically poisoned his political opponents, and Trump seems to have the ability to just deport anyone without without due process. It's really insane to think that the Fox News back in the day would claim that Barack Obama was overreaching with things like drones and that. They would say Barack Obama is trying to be both the judge and the jury. And now today, Donald Trump is more than just the judge and the jury. We're not even people are not even having their days in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a constitutional crisis. But I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, other than absolutely constitutional crisis. And then as I sit here looking at Uf Bustos, I really fear for what the future is going to be like in this country.
Yes, that's why I've adopted this outfit. I want to be prepared when it happens. I want to be the last one getting used to it. I may not do it well. It may not go over well. Yes, I had to be prepared. Now, so I was watching something similar on Fox while I was working out, and I have to be honest, seeing that, I don't know if it makes me work out harder or just more pissed. I don't know. But they were talking about how whoever was doing the interview just simply didn't even ask if he was a criminal, just wanted to get Garcia out. But they never asked if he was a criminal. I'm like, okay, first of all, due process is important. You can't just deport people who are citizens without due process, period.
Correct.
It doesn't matter who they are, because when you start doing it for one person, it opens up the door to do it for anybody else that you choose. And that could be you or your neighbor. Whereas we've seen with Trump, if you work for him, I think I would be more scared.
Well, you know how he's basically, they always say about the Dems that the Dems eat their own. Well, he must be digesting it and everything else with his own people, because he's trying. First of all, I need him to chill. Somebody need to get him a sleeping pill or something, because of the simple fact is you messing with my 401k man, and we don't like, because you hollering about firing the guy that's over finance and know about moving numbers better than you, way
Mhm.
better than you. So I'm gonna need you to chill on that, because you messing with people 401k, their retirement, and because
Mhm.
people will not invest in this country when you start messing with the person that they trust the most. You're gonna trust somebody, Miss Bose, like your husband is a
My
CPA.
uncle.
You're
Mhm.
gonna trust those that are. This is what they do. They're the professional. They know this job, right? That's who you're gonna trust. Why would you trust somebody like him that has never gone to school, don't know how to budget anything? Because if he did, he wouldn't have had how many bankruptcies? He doesn't pay his people.
Six?
He has so many issues. I'm just saying, it's, you can come at me if you want to, but it's the truth. The truth is the truth. He don't pay his bills.
Mhm.
He don't file bankruptcy. So why should we believe anything that you say about our financial? And then you don't even understand the definition of TARP at all. You're thinking that it's going to hurt these other countries, and you haven't even looked. You must be outside the country, because you cannot be in America and see the effect that's happening right now. Now, the full blown effect on that is going to probably wind up hitting us during the summertime, because it takes a minute for everything to start merging through. Once they start buying up everything that's in these warehouses that we already have,
Mhm.
we're going to feel it. And I'm like, I want Congress to fix it. So
Have you
that's,
heard the commercials about buy now, beat the tariffs? I mean, everything from furniture to cars. Yeah.
I'm not going to buy no. Now,
You know who's
listen,
in, you know who's in charge of the oversight committee? Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's the most powerful committee in the House because it's the oversight. Oh my
yeah, but
God.
we got
Jasmine Crockett's on
Jasmine
there
Crockett
too.
on there. Jasmine Crockett is still on that committee, so thank
Mhm.
God for that.
Yeah.
But we definitely need to make sure that we get out to vote people like that out of there. And they had to be drunk when they made her the president, or whatever she is of it, because she's about as dumb as rocks.
So they had somebody on there and they were talking about checks that the government writes and so forth. And um, the IRS and the Federal Reserve and all that. And so he's an expert on fraud, and he was saying that we have about, I think, I don't know, it was a really high number, but maybe a 20% 20% of our payments may be fraud or something like that. And then in just a regular public, it's 3%. And they're like, why? He goes, well, it's foreign actors. It's not you and me. Most of it's not Americans who are doing it. It's foreign actors who are doing it. And so when we were getting that money during the pandemic, he said one state had so many claims, it was actually more claims than they had number of people who were even able to make the claims. So
It's
the
crazy.
issue wasn't the people living there, it was somebody from a different country. But the reason they're able to do it is because they won't invest in software that helps to protect our data and our information. It's their fault. And I watched hearings for like 2 years, and I'm telling you, that's not Democrats. Democrats and government officials that they are firing right now for not maintaining the records and making sure there was no fraud have been begging for these resources for years. And they have been denied over and over again by the very Republicans who are now blaming them for it.
Right.
And I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the bitches that denied it too. Don't get me started. I watched it and they will slam their hands like, you can do it. You don't need that much. You need less. Figure it out. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, this is why we are where we are.
Well, and since you brought her up, they're trying to say that Trump is going to back her if she decides to run for Senate. So
My head
I
hurts.
hope I hope Georgia wake up. Now I understand in her area she have like-minded people in her area, so that's a seed that it's gonna take somebody else to run hard to go take it away. But She don't need to be the senator. That's just too close to comfort. And I hope they investigate her on the stock market crash that she wound up making money
Oh
off of. I
yeah.
hope they investigate that deeply and find her at fault. But it's hard out here. It's a lot of things that they're doing that's against the Constitution, and it's like I'm glad that some of the Supreme Court judges are actually standing up and they're trying to block a lot of the things that are happening. Because if they weren't, I can't even imagine some of the stuff that he will get away with. And
Mm.
don't forget, y'all, he still got to pay New York.
Has he ever paid the lady that he what is her?
No,
No?
no.
How is he not in jail?
She's gonna wind up taking his house, anything that he owns. I think he has a certain amount of time to go ahead and
Mm,
pay. And if
mhm.
he does not pay, they're gonna wind up taking his business, his homes, and everything else. But I'm quite sure they're gonna fight it all the way through. But yeah, she's on them. She's on them, and she's winning so far.
Oh,
So
good.
we're just gonna keep a good eye out there and keep watching and seeing what's happening.
Is that
And
the civil loss? Wasn't there another or was that the civil lawsuit that the judge recently or I guess
the
made a
other ones
call?
had closed it. I believe the other ones closed it down. They said, you know what, we're gonna put it on the back burner. So they let it go. But that
Seemed
this
like
goes
there was
that's what brought us to this point right here. Our Congressman Al Green did the impeachment today, and I'm so happy. Yes, he did the impeachment. He sat up there and he did the speech about it. And I hope that something wind up changing. I know it's going to wind up having to go through Congress and the Senate and everything. It's going to have to go. He might have to do it 2 or 3 times, but at least he's starting the groundwork for it. So hey, we got some people out here in Texas fighting for the whole country and not just for Texas. So we need that. We need that. So Al Green, you have my support on whatever it is that you're trying to do, sir. You have my
so
support.
so does he have the support of those 4 Democrats that voted for the SAVE Act?
Now
Mm,
we lie.
mm,
So I'm gonna have to be halfway nice. Those people, I would suggest the that
mm,
we wind up primarying them. And
They're
I know
not
some
Democrat.
folks are going to say, no, don't do it. Yeah, let's do it because the simple fact is you voted against your constituents. That's what you did.
Oh,
And then
but
you vote to have
yeah.
him silenced.
Mhm.
We have that group. We had them to vote against Crockett as well. So it's like we got issues in our party. Yes, we do,
Mhm.
but it needs to be fixed. And I hope that here in Texas, that Kendall Shutter wind up doing a good
Yeah.
job in trying to bring us all together. But the president of the Democrat Party, you gonna have to do something about this because we ain't right. We got to be fixed. In order for us to go against the GOP, we need to make sure that we are all on the same page. When one stands up, we all stand up. That's how it's supposed to be. So if
Mhm.
somebody, Hakeem, you need to go chat with them folks because if they don't get on the same page as everybody else, they need to be primary. Period.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can vote again or differently than your party, but not when it comes to whether or not half the population can vote or any of the population. You do not vote against voting rights. If you are a citizen, goddamn it, you get to vote. These are your options. You get to vote. You've
Exactly.
registered. There you are. I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
if you're
Because
not a
when your
citizen, you
constituents.
obviously don't get to vote, huh?
Exactly. That's why you're in the outfit that you're in because the simple fact is, in a minute, that's going to be Louis
That's your
Vuitton type
outfit.
of special. We're going to be, we keep going the way we're going with them reversing things going back to the 1800s and maybe the 1700s. This is what America is going to look like Miss
Mhm.
Lucy right over here.
So we had a Texan that voted for this, Henry Kohler. Where is he out of?
He's probably up here
Well, with our
or
luck, I
East
mean, I'm
Texas
surprised.
somewhere.
Well, you had me up. How did? Anyways, I debrief. I calm
Okay.
down.
All right. So we're gonna move along since we done
Mm.
talked about that. Let's move on to what's going on in Texas since we keep saying Texas, Texas, Texas. Well, Texas House, what did y'all do? They voted to push that dang on voucher on through.
Mhm.
Yep.
There were so many things they did that was bad. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. No.
I know, when y'all asked me what the thing was, I'm like bad bosses. Pick one. I
That's
could have
all
went on with that one.
right.
Well, we definitely got some bad bosses that sat up there in Texas in the House, and of course, it's going to the Senate if they haven't already gone. That they're going to be trying to push that voucher. So it's already passed through the House. We did have two Republicans that said no
Ooh.
against. So I know, right? Two, and they probably were in the rural areas that stood up. So hopefully, you know they don't get primary or whatever, but they stood up, and we need the rest of them to stand up because listen, these private schools don't have to take all these kids. Just because you get the voucher does not mean that you're going to get accepted at these academies. They
Mm-mm.
might not want you because you might not fit the bill. Just because you're making $100,000 a year, your family does.
Mhm.
You're not with them seven-figure folks. You know what I'm
They
saying?
don't even want you in there.
They don't,
Again,
because
they
that's
don't.
why they sent their kids to private schools, because they don't want their kids being associated with public school folks, because things happen. So we're gonna
Mhm.
see how this all gonna play out. But Dale, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, this has been a long, long fight. It's been a long fight. It's been a fight that, I mean, there's so much to say about this. First of all, as you were saying, these private schools they don't have to accept anyone in if they don't want to. They can basically pick and choose, and they usually do that with an entry exam. And this is
Mhm.
why a lot of those kids who have special needs are going to be hurt the most. And I will also plug another podcast, one called Voucher Scam. And the second episode was very heartbreaking because they were interviewing a woman who was, I'm blanking now, it's either New Mexico or Arizona, but there's another state in the country that did implement a school voucher program. And she saw how at first, the schools were getting underfunded. They started cutting after school activities. They started cutting all sorts of stuff that was considered extra, to the point where they too were looking at shutting down schools. So they moved to Texas to get away from that, only to find out now that a voucher program was being pushed. And it's been being pushed for a while. I'll remind everyone the true puppet masters behind the scenes of all of this is two men, Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes. There's a couple of others who stand to profit off this, but those are the two main ones. And they're the ones who've been pushing vouchers really hard. They want to privatize the public education system. And it's unfortunately working, and now it's going to start getting even worse. I mean, the problem's going to escalate as if it's being powered on steroids. And I'll give you an example of this. In Plano ISD, they recently had to shut down four, I think it was three or four public schools. And I've seen this story before. Plano ISD doesn't have the funding. They say to themselves, all right, what are we going to do? Are we going to cut the staff, or are we going to cut the buildings? And usually they try to cut the buildings over staff, depending on the ISD. But they're going to sell those buildings because they have to. And some fat cat rich billionaire is going to purchase those buildings to flip it into our charter school and then want a voucher program. So what
Mhm.
you're seeing here is that's a privatization of our public education system, and those rich people who purchase these buildings and flip them to charter schools, they stand to profit from this. They stand to profit from this. And this system used to be a type of thing where our taxpayer money went directly to servicing our youngsters. But
Mhm.
now there's going to be this overhead because now our taxpayer money is going to go through a voucher program, then to these private institutions, these who are for profit institutions, by the way. And these investors who invest in purchasing these buildings as they have to be sold due to the underfunding of our public education system are the ones who are going to be collecting that money and putting it into their pockets. So that's what's going on here. And Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks, these guys who religiously, I mean, literally religiously believe in this kind of stuff, stand to both profit from this and also stand to gain a lot of power from this. It's I can go on for a long time about Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks. If I was to go into their theology and the stuff they believe in, it will take me about an hour to explain it all. I mean, they're
We
not
don't
just
have an hour, Dale.
yeah, yeah, but
Well,
real quick, they're not just Christian nationalists. They believe in a twisted theology called the Seven Mountain Mandate. The Seven Mountain Mandate stands on top of another theology called the New Apostolic Reformation. And if you look into either New Apostolic Reformation or the Mountain Mandate theology, you will absolutely say, oh my God, there's nothing Christian about this. And it's not. And that's why we call it Christian nationalism. But I like to drop those words, New Apostolic Reformation, and I like to drop the words Seven Mountain Mandate because it is a very specific thing that you can Google and learn about. And it should be horrifying to everyone to know that that is the theology that not only these two believe in, but something they preach as the people who are the top donors of the Texas GOP. They give money to every single state level senator on the Republican side of the aisle. Every
Yeah.
Republican state level senator has been purchased by Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks.
well,
And
they've
they
done more.
want to end our public education system and they
Yeah.
want to take control of it.
They've done more than that. I mean, they've done that, but they also, I mean, Abbott's their little puppet. And my understanding is, according to Tallarico, something that I had read or saw him saying, he took each one of the Republicans into the office and
Yeah.
told them, I'll primary you out. Your career is done, or you vote for this. I
You
mean,
know,
we don't, no one
I'm
works for
sorry.
us.
But you know what? I'm sorry, but if the governor sits up there and calls you in the office and he says that he threatens you, basically that's what he did
Hmm.
to vote for something, you gotta start thinking. Are
Right.
you going to stand up for the people who elected you for that position? He can primary you all he wants, but if the people say no, this is what we're
Hmm.
going to do. We're going to stand up for who put us here. He'll be okay. They will be okay. But because they're cowards and
Yeah.
they're not standing up to this man. I have no respect for them. They're disgusting. And the
Why don't they?
things that like Mitch,
Right.
you watched it. If you watched the hearing, Mitch Little got up there and he was doing all that nonsense talking that he always does. And I'm like, you probably are one of the main ones who benefits off of putting your kid in a private school because I met his kids and I guarantee you they're not going to no public school. They're going to a private school. And guess what? He gonna
Mm-hmm.
benefit off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like this, like I said before, why are you hurting our public schools? The only thing that I think, and it's just my opinion, I feel like if you want to go ahead and help your rich people, then give them a tax break on education. Give
Mm-hmm.
them that tax break so that way you won't be sitting up here hurting our public schools that really and truly need every penny that they get. Give them a tax break. That way you're not hurting all of us just for a few people that are millionaires.
Well, remember we talked about last week, there's only one person responsible for funding our schools. Not person, but entity, and that's the state.
Yeah.
They have the state school fund. The Constitution is extremely clear on 90% of the funding. Where it kind of gets a little hazy and gives the legislators more leeway is when we raise taxes through property taxes or we do bonds and vaders. The reason being is because it's not the responsibility of the ISD to raise any of the funds. That is an option the ISD has. It also creates a little bit of an imbalance on the education system because wealthier districts tend to have more money. But I want to look back into this and find out, why did the ISD start raising money to begin with? Is it because we have systematically underfunded our schools on the state level for over decades and decades of time? Because that's another underlying issue. Vouchers are just one way that we're ripping our schools apart and that we're taking money. Charter schools, in my opinion, are not legal. Part
Hmm.
of the funding for schools is land. We don't
Right.
own the land in charter schools. Private people own the land. That guy that has 1,000, the superintendent that only has 1,000 students in his school, I listen to the people from that school district. from the charter actually talked during HB2 hearing, and they were sticking up for them. They needed money for a roof. The legislators, and I mean Republican at this, they're like, well, so don't you think you could afford a new roof with your three schools if he had not, have him spend some of his $800,000? They go, don't you think that's excessive? They go, no, it's market value. Well, his actual pay was around 300,000 or 400,000, which is still high for 1,000 kids. But the market value is the contracts that he has, he gets bonuses from them. And that's where the rest of the money came in. No
Mhm.
superintendent is getting bonuses. All of this is privately owned, publicly funded, and then more publicly or privately funded, I guess. It is the biggest ripoff. So we're already funding private schools. We just call them public schools that are privately owned. Yeah.
Yeah, here in Texas, we do have choice. We
Mhm.
have those schools where the kids can go to, like if they want to learn how to fly planes, we have choices for them.
Mhm.
So
But they also like when we have the recapture because the state sets that arbitrary number, Dale knows exactly what I'm talking about here. And they take the rest of it. I mean, Louisville, what we had $60 million a couple of years ago be sent to the general fund. And I think that year over $5 billion was sent to the general fund. None of that money is specifically earmarked for public schools, but it does go to our charter schools. So the general fund is where the charters gets part of their the charter schools get part of their funding from.
yeah,
So basically, they're just stealing it from the public schools to give it to the charter schools.
they are. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to wind up happening to our public school once this goes live. But I really hope that the parents don't give up. Let's continue to fight for this. Let's continue to show up in Austin. Continue to call and email and write them and let them know, because at the end of the day, you got to tell them, we remember what you did on this date. So we're going to come
Do we?
November, we're going to remember you. So those of you who want to run for office, there's going to be plenty of seats available. So think about it, because we got to make a change out here in Texas. So whoever I would love to know who's going to run for governor, because that is coming up too. So we need a good, strong Democrat that's going to wind up stepping up to the plate to run against Abbott, because Abbott needs to go. Now, who
Abs-
it's going to be, I don't know.
Absolutely. If you want to bring that subject up, that is very interesting. Also, the fact that Ken Paxton, our current Attorney General, is running for another position. He's running for the Congressional Senate. So that will be another interesting race to follow as well. I personally am rooting for, and I don't know what this individual is going to do. There's a state house member by the name of James Tellerico, and he is
Yeah.
noticeably making his way around almost the entire state. For
Mhm.
example, I saw him in person up in Wichita Falls several months ago. He came out here to the Frisco Democratic Club, and we hosted him. But he's
Oh,
not from this area. He represents an area very far away, so it's very clear that he's wanting to probably run for some position. We're not quite sure what that is yet, but I'm very excited to see what that is. Also, I know that State House Representative Vicki Goodwin,
mhm.
she was at I think it was the Collin County. It was either the Collin County yearly gala, or maybe it was the Denton County one. But I remember she announced that she was planning to run for, I think it was lieutenant governor, if I recall
Mhm.
Yeah.
correctly. And aside from that, let's see, because I was just making a list of all the positions that were going to be open. Georgine, I think I sent it to you, and also the DCDP leaders.
Oh, yeah.
There
Everyone's
is
Republican.
there's a lot of positions that are going to be up for reelection in this
Mhm.
coming
Yeah.
midterms, because there's a lot of positions that are 4-year terms, and it's probably done by design this way. A lot of these positions are 4-year terms, but synced in a way where they only get reelected during midterms and not during presidential election cycles.
I
Uh,
s
and that would be things like the county commissioner, or at least these two county commissioners, for example, the county judge, at least here in Denton County, the lieutenant governor, the governor, I believe, is yes, that's a 4-year term, not a 6-year term. Right? I think only congressional senators are
Yes.
6-year terms. But yeah, it's one of those things where I forgot that a lot of these things are synced up to only run for for reelection during midterms, but there's a lot of them. So it's going to be a very competitive midterm season coming up.
It really is. 2026 is going to be interesting to see who's going to be running for what position, and I hope that people start donating to them, because they're going to need all the help that they can get, because we cannot beat the Republicans without the money, because they already got these billionaires that's already backing them now, so you're definitely going to need that right there. You're going to need support. So
Yeah. Well, we also maybe need to get over the fact that it's okay to take some PAC money if you need it. Don't let them tell you what to do. But let's get real. We need money.
we
Candidates
do.
need money. And
Trust and believe, not to cut you off, but definitely, I know Dale knows that we definitely needed money in our campaign when we ran. So, of course,
mhm.
Yeah, we were literally going against literal millionaires. Brent
Yeah.
Hagenbu is a millionaire. He had spent $2 million of his own money, and then he was given another $2 million from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. And of
So
course,
he
they
sent.
get money from they get Dan Patrick gets his money from Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks. But
Mhm.
there's it's insane to see how much money there is. I think I was saying this in Toastmasters the other day. I said I noticed how all up the chain, it's all big, rich, rich, rich CEOs, particularly where I live here in the Colony, Texas. What I mean is my state level House Representative Jared Patterson is the CEO of an energy company. The next level up, my state level senator Brent Hagenbu is the CEO of a trucking company, the one that gives frozen foods to all the grocery stores. And the next level above that, even the president of the United States, the true president of the United States, Hail Hitler, Elon Musk, is the CEO of a rocket company. It just
Mhm.
seems that almost all the way up the chain, we got these big, rich CEOs, and these guys, I'm not anti-business. I am pro-business, but you do see a lot of these individuals who care only about their self-corporate interests and not
mhm.
the actual people, not the working class people. And it
Mhm.
really goes to show, like when my state house representative Jared Patterson calls wind energy woke, even though he's the CEO of an energy company, when my state level senator Brent Hagenbu is anti-union and fires his own employees who try to unionize, which of course is for his self corporate interest. And we've
Mhm.
seen everything that Elon's done. I don't even need to get started on that. It really goes to show, these rich people. The thing is, I don't think Democrats could possibly ever outraise Republicans. They're just too rich. But at the same time, too, we don't necessarily need to. We still need to try.
Right.
Need to get money. And the
Mhm.
best example of this is I could show you is a nice, lovely woman named Mihaela Palisa. She is a state house representative for Plano for HD70. And if you look at her past campaign and her opponent outraised her by and outspent her by several times over again. But Mihaela still won.
Mhm.
Now, she also did raise a lot of money, and
Mhm.
she did raise and spend a lot of money. It was very impressive. But her opponent, of course, money wise, had a lot more. But
Yeah.
those Republican policies are so unpopular. Republicans can still lose.
Well, and that's a good point because money only goes so far, and this is always a fact no matter what you're talking about. But you do have to have some. You do have to have a lot. I can't imagine spending $2 million on a $7,000 salary.
Right.
Yeah,
Just I'm sorry, 14,000 because or with 4 years it'd be what 28. So I mean it's a little bit more than seven.
it's a job that literally makes less than minimum wage. It was
Mhm.
kind of funny. I was charting out all the positions that are going to be up for reelection in the 2026 midterms. And it was interesting to see how, most of these positions are six-digit salaries, but
Mhm.
the state house, the state senate, and I didn't even know this until I was making this list. The Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, including, they all basically make less than minimum wage. Now,
Yeah, they
in
do.
reality, they make a lot of money, and the reason they make a lot of money is because you can't pay your mortgage when you get paid less than minimum wage. There's no way. But what they do is they just sell their soul to some corporate pack or massive pack or corporation, and that's how they get their money. It's one of these things that we really really need to fix. We need to fix it with campaign finance restrictions, and we probably need to make it so that this job could be something. that someone can get and pay their mortgage with so that regular people can feel comfortable running for office. We also need to be very careful with that messaging. A good friend of mine and one of my Democratic primary opponents, his name is Matthew McGee, and he was actually running on that. He was running to say, hey, look, guys, we need to increase the amount of money that politicians receive. But because he said we got to give politicians more money, of course, that can definitely rub people the wrong way. You first have to explain and say, hey, look, when you make less than a minimum wage as a state house representative and state senator, no normal person is going to run for that because they're going to realize that they can't pay their mortgage. They can't even feed their family with that. And that's why normal, regular people don't
Exactly.
feel comfortable running for those positions. But if we just had like a rational amount, and then we also, is even more important maybe, is to establish campaign finance restrictions to stop it and at least try to limit people from receiving money from super PACs. That would put us in a situation where we can kind of say that we're trying to take money out of politics. And that's going to be the only way that we can establish a distribution of wealth across the people. Because we
We
need
do need to get
also,
rid of super PACs.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
it definitely needs to have a cap on that, that's not going to happen. But until if it does happen, great. But right now, where we're at, we need to be
right.
raising money for our party, for the people that's running, because they're going to need it to go against the machine. So that's it. Basically, that's what it is. We know they need to put a cap on it, but that's not going to happen because they're making too much money on that side. And then there are some people on our side that are making money too, but it's just quietly kept. They're taking PAC money too from dark places too. They just haven't been exposed. So I would say if you running for office right now, y'all need to start asking for donations now because believe it or not, we got some old Democrats, old liberals. There's some people out there, even some GOP that don't like the way how things are going. They will donate to you, and some of them don't want to be reported now. Since you brought that up, sorry. Since you brought that up, if you are running for office and you have Act Blue, that is going to be shut down, I believe, today. So anyone that's listening, y'all please go to your Act Blue and go download your donation list now because at midnight it's probably going to be gone. So if you don't have it, you need to download your list. So
Okay.
please download your list of donation, the people that donated to you because it's going to be gone.
Yeah, and to add on to that too, probably not that many people fall into this position, but also if you yourself are a PAC. For example, we at the Frisco Democratic Club, we are a PAC, and we have used Act Blue. I'm not sure about Democrats 380 or the Carlton Democratic Club, but
They're not.
I'll make sure that they're
Yeah.
aware of that. And the reason, of course, we need that is because it's not enough to have Act Blue record our information. That information actually needs to go to the TEC, the Texas Ethics Commission, and you won't be able to give your campaign finance report to the TEC, of course, unless you have that information. So
So
we will see what happens.
a couple of things on that one. First of all, $7,200 was the last time that wage was increased to that was 1975. Based off labor statistics with the inflation rate, it should be $44,194. Yeah. Still not really a living wage, but a little bit better. Second of all, I was watching Marjorie Taylor Greene, during her hearings. Well, she's the one that's head of the oversight committee. So this is where that's coming from. They are literally trying to take away our ability to raise money by shutting down Act Blue.
Yeah.
That's where that they don't. There's no fraud. I mean, there's fraud everywhere. But again, 2 months ago was when they had the other hearing. The guy goes, "We just need software to fix this problem," and it's foreign actors, not and it's not Americans. It's somebody. Whatever they're saying about us, we know they're doing. So I want to see into their account. I want theirs to be frozen. If we have to lose ours, they don't get one either.
See, that's where we need to have people in Congress that fights against, stands up and says something instead of being quiet and taking it. It's
Mhm.
like you're being bent over and you taking it raw. Well, whatever they telling you that's going to happen, that's what's going to happen because you're just sitting
Mhm.
there and you're taking it. And then the ones that are, we need to be protecting the ones that are standing up, but it's a whole bunch of them that's not saying anything. And I'm like, come on, wake the hell up and
It's
fight back. They are literally
yes.
going to take our country away, and you're sitting on your ass not doing anything. You
Mhm.
being quiet.
They need primaried.
Yes, you
Primaried.
need to act right. Stand up. Stand
Yes.
up.
If you
Stand
don't
up
have a
now.
spine, you're as
Yeah,
big a piece of shit as they are. You're no better than
exactly.
MAGA. You, as far as I'm concerned, you're nothing to me. You need to go. You don't belong in that seat. You're wasting our time. Somebody else needs to step up, take over, and we need people with a spine, a backbone,
Exactly.
willing to speak out. AOC may be our biggest hope. The girl's loud. She's smart, and I like her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and she also pisses off Fox News. I was
I
saying earlier
like
how I was
her
watching both
more.
Fox News and CNN. There was another headline that came up today. The Fox News
Mhm.
admitted that she's gaining traction. It makes me kind of wonder if she'll take a shot for running for the presidency. I don't know if that's maybe too early or if she's maybe too young
Got
for that, but
chills.
we'll definitely see what happens. But she's definitely gaining traction and gaining popularity.
60 60% of the population like her. That's the highest we've had and since Obama probably.
Oh
Maybe.
yeah,
Did he have 60%? I don't know, but that's a good number.
yeah.
his numbers were really good, and
Yeah.
with the way how she fights, I think that I, I don't think she's ready to be the president. I think that she would be good as a U.S. Senate.
Mhm.
That's where
That's
she needs
probably
to
she
go
going.
to, where we need somebody like her. Because remember, those folks are getting ready to retire out, and some of them are passing. We need to move her out of the Congress and put her in the Senate, is where
Mhm.
she needs to be at, because the Senate has more power than the president. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people
Yeah.
like ALC, so don't get mad at me, but I don't think it's her time yet.
I
Not
don't
yet.
care if she runs for president or for the Senate.
Yeah.
I
Huh?
like both. She can
Yeah.
pick either one, but I understand what you're saying. We need to win the presidency back, and we don't
Yeah.
want to do something that's going to cause us to lose it. But at the same time, we don't want to lose the fire that she has, and we want to make sure she stays around. And I'm kind of tired of her putting that at risk every 2 years. So 6 year sentence with the Senate
Yeah.
would
I
probably
think
be a
she,
good start.
yeah, because I think that if she became the senator or U.S. Senate,
Hmm.
she would do amazing, because
Yeah,
she would wind up being control over the Senate. I see her
that would
being
be
a
great.
Senate leader, because we need
Hmm.
somebody that's strong, because I hate to say it, but it's true. She's a tough cookie. She's another Pelosi in a way.
She is so Pelosi with ethics. She's got more ethics
Yes.
than Pelosi. I'm just saying, but
Yes, and we need somebody that's
yeah.
gonna have some backbone to stand up against those good
I
old guys up there in the
know.
Senate. And that's what if I wanted to support her, that's what I would advise her to do, is say, hey, look at becoming U.S. Senate, because that's where you're needed at.
Mhm.
Let's wait for the president, because she's not ready. We'll be setting her up for failure. Let's put her in the Senate where she can do a much better job. She'll be there for 7 years, because y'all got to remember the damage that was done within these 90 days. It's going to take a very seasoned person that knows everything, that has been there, that kind of knows everything about what's going on in DC, that's good at finances and everything, and put some. It's going to take almost 10 years to clean this mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also going to take Congress as well because
Mhm.
Yes,
if you
we
recall
need
correctly,
somebody like her
ICE,
in there.
yeah, like for example, if you recall, ICE technically is somewhat new-ish because ICE, I forget the acronym, but there was a different organization that existed before ICE. There were basically did what ICE was is doing right now. But when it comes to creating new government agencies, that takes an act of Congress.
Mhm.
So, in order to really fix the damage, we need to have a democratic trifecta, and then we need to move forward with that. The last democratic trifecta that we had, I believe it was during the first half of the Biden administration. Uh, and I'm blanking now upon what progress we made on that. But whatever the progress that we made there doesn't even hold a candle to the amount of damage that is being done in this current Trump
Yeah.
administration right now. But we were just talking about how there are Democrats who are not strong enough, and that bothers us. We were talking, so I was then kind of wondering, what Democrats do we like? For example, what are your top 3 to 5 strongest speaking Democrats? I think in my head it's probably definitely AOC, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, and the one down here, Jasmine Crockett.
Mm.
I got to think about who my number 5 would be. But in terms of the top Democrats, I think definitely at least those 4. Now,
Jamie Raskin.
Jamie Raskin, yeah. But in terms of running for the presidency, I mean, I like Bernie Sanders. I think he's too old. I
Yeah.
don't know if AOC is too young or not. But how old is Jasmine Crockett? I blanked. I can't tell people's ages by looking at them.
I
But
think she's in her 30s,
30s, I
her
think.
early
oh,
30s.
okay,
She's still
okay.
really young.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Well,
I think that she
you have to be
probably should
35 in
eventually
order
run
to
for
run
U.S.
for a
Senate
presidency.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put Crockett more in the Senate. She's a little verbal for the presidency right now. Now, the difference, and there is a difference between Jasmine and AOC when you watch a hearing. Now, I
Yeah,
love Jasmine's fire and all that, but AOC will calmly and almost scary like ask you very sweetly questions to kind of dig down and get to the truth. Crockett will be more in your face. AOC's more in your face outside of the hearing kind of situation. But when she's in there, she's actually really digging in, asking questions, wanting to know the answers, and trying to come up with solutions. You know what I mean? And
hmm
Crockett does the same thing too. But you got to watch her with Marjorie Taylor Greene because I think that girl just they get under each other's skin. And
that's
Marjorie and MTG actually has to behave right now because she's the chair. It's hilarious. I wonder how long this is gonna last. Probably not long. I think I've already
not
seen
long.
things where she's blown it, but they're like, if you do this too much, Marjorie, you will not be chair.
Exactly, and I just love the fact that Jasmine, Miss Crockett gets up under her skin,
She
but
does.
even though she's very straightforward, she talks like the average person
Mhm,
she does, and
mhm.
you understand the words that's coming out of her mouth. Even though I think sometimes you need to kind of like
Tone it down just a little bit,
just a
yeah.
little bit,
But I
because
don't wanna put out her fire,
yeah,
because
I want her to go and
yeah,
do
I
what
mean,
she's doing, but be what you say in court, because I think she's the way how she speaks,
that's
I think
what
she's
it
an amazing
is.
attorney.
Yeah.
So when treat them like you are in court.
Uh-huh. That's what she was doing the other day during that hearing. I mean, I can't say I disagreed with anything that she said, and but it was I also felt like it was a missed opportunity to really tell the Republicans, "Hey, we're on the same page here. Finally, for once, we can maybe make them fund and give the government the resources they need, so we don't continue to have 20% fraud. That's
Right.
high. That
Yeah,
is so high.
it
There's
is.
no reason we're not 3%, and it's all just a matter of funding technology, which would give us 17% back. I'm going to say it's going to fund itself. And the guy who was testifying is like, it would fund itself. Now, he really had already said everything that needed to be said. No one was really listening because they didn't care to hear it. They just wanted to shut down departments and fire people. That was their only goal. Uh,
And
but
get
yeah,
our information, get our social security. Now,
yeah.
I'm sitting up here wondering what information did they get and how are they going to use it?
hmm Well, he's
You
going
know,
back to Tesla now, so he's probably really just going back to his little computer, figuring out how he can hijack the rest of us.
well, he got the information because he was in there long enough to get whatever information that he needed
Hmm.
to use it against us. And that's why I'm like, why in the world would you put a fox in a hen house? That's the most dumbest thing that I ever thought of. But you know what? Trump was bought. He paid for him, so you get what you get.
Oh, Trump loves it. He's like, he wants them to eat us. They don't want an us unless we're just working for them. They've said it. We are
Yeah.
nothing more than just factory workers,
That's one of the
unmedicated.
reasons why they took away women's right to
Mhm.
reproduction, because it came out of this senator's mouth, and I forgot his name. He's from Oklahoma. He said, we're gonna need 20 years from now, people are gonna age out and we
Mhm.
need more workers.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think people don't want to have babies as much anymore because, well, I mean, originally women were working, so that kind of cuts into. the time that we have to bear children. But now we just don't want to have them because we don't like the world we live in. And we're still too educated. We're educated enough to know better. I
Well,
think that
we definitely gonna have to talk about that because they got another bill that's coming up that I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research on it. That if you're pregnant and you have a miscarriage, if you help somebody with a pregnancy, as far as they have to go to the hospital and they have a miscarriage, that you could get charged if they're going to go have an abortion. You could get charged for assisting them. So that bill is coming up, and I definitely want to do some more research on it and find out exactly what it all entails too, because they're trying to hold people, put people in jail. And I'm like, do you obviously you don't know anything about a woman's body, because sometimes your body will reject that baby,
you don't
it'll
even know
reject
it.
it, you know.
Yeah.
So you obviously don't know anything about a woman's body, because if you knew how our body works, then you will understand that sometimes things happen. Sometimes you have a spontaneous abortion. It happens. Sometimes, you know, things are wrong and they need help. Don't
So
take that away, but they did. But we need to fight against that too.
do y'all remember earlier, or I guess into last year, maybe earlier, no, maybe earlier this year too, they were passing around a little thing that we were signing and put your what district you're in and who your legislator is and blah blah blah. But it was supposed to be just to put some protections in for women so that doctors could actually take care of them versus having to wait till the woman was almost dead. That's part of the bill, but it's only part of the bill to an extent because that's when they came back and said they put that in the bill, but now it's no longer 6 weeks that it's a baby, it's at conception. So there's supposed to be some
Yeah.
leniency for miscarriages. However, I mean, if they say you didn't have a miscarriage and you can't prove it, now you're a murderer. If you drive somebody to the hospital for an abortion, or, I mean, what if you're driving them to the hospital and they miscarry? Are you now responsible for the miscarriage? That's actually considered an abortion?
I guess you will be, according to
Hmm.
this new bill that they're trying to put out there. And I'm like, who in their right mind is, obviously they don't have any kids. Obviously they're not married. Because
They're
I
just not
can't even
there.
imagine a woman that would sit up there and write a bill like that. But
Well, I
these
would
are the
not.
stupidest people I've ever seen in my life. They're coming up with these stupid bills that
Mhm.
makes no sense whatsoever. They're hurting the state. They're hurting the country. We got to just put some good people in place where they can write good bills, because these bills they coming up with, I'm like, I think they laying in bed and saying, oh, let's see how we can mess up a woman's life. So basically, just tell us what you really want. You don't want us working because we're competing against you. You want us at home. You want us barefoot, pregnant, in the kitchen. And I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not gonna get pregnant, and I'm not going in the kitchen unless I feel like going in the kitchen. And I go in
Mhm.
the kitchen with my shoes on. So you're gonna have a problem
Oh,
with
damn.
me.
You know what? I am dressed so appropriate right now.
You you always
Yeah,
starting something.
yeah.
You
So
know, I read that bill. That would be why I ordered this bitch because I read the bill. I got a legislative alert. Call your legislators. And at that point, I just kind of wanted to stab each one. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is where you're going to go with this? You're going to say we're going to protect you just a little bit, just enough to let us know that there's absolutely less protection. We are not protected anymore. What doctor is going to want to touch us? Period.
they're
Y-
gonna be scared to touch us.
The
They look like,
OBGYNs
oh,
are going to be flying out of the state.
Yeah, well,
first,
they've actually already have been flying out of the state. That's something we've been seeing. A lot of doctors have been going to other states because they say that at the time, I mean, obviously things have gotten worse now, and they're going to get worse. But
Mhm.
even earlier this past year and the previous year before, there was so much uncertainty. They said, "All right, if I graduate from college to become an OBGYN or whatever, I don't know how long I can continue my practice here in Texas." It seemed to be better for their career to go somewhere else where they knew their career would be more sustained through time, as opposed to stay here
Mhm.
with all the uncertainty. Because what we've been seeing in the past year is that there's gray areas. where doctors would say, all right, I don't think I'm violating the law based upon the laws that are passed, but some of these are not very well laid out in terms of the writing and the way the bills were written, to the point where they say, like, I could probably be taken to court by a lawyer based upon using certain legal phrasing, but they're not quite sure, right? And none of these doctors, none of these OBGYNs want to be the guinea pigs in that. It's much easier to
Right.
go to another state where they know that they can continue their job and career and live their lives. But it's so bad because, you know, we have a really bad healthcare system right here in Texas right now. We have the most amount of
It's like the
uninsured
worst.
individuals here in Texas more than any other state. And now our doctors are leaving us. It's insane to think that, you know, this party considers itself to be the pro family party when they're completely doing the opposite. You're not pro family when you do this to individuals who want to be mothers. You're not pro family when you decide that you're not going to give free school lunches to children. You're not pro family when you let our healthcare system just die out. And it's devastating to see this, but we definitely need to flip our Congress and our state level Congress as well. I try to keep a glass half full mentality. The way I get myself to sleep at night is I remind myself that the last time Donald Trump had a trifecta, there was a blue wave during his midterm, and I know it's going to take some time, and the days are going to crawl by like years, but I do expect a blue wave to happen in this coming midterm. We just need to get our candidates ready to go and make sure that it happens successfully.
I just hope we have a
Exactly.
midterm.
Great. Y'all, we have went way over again and then oh my goodness. But you know what? It was great talk. We're gonna have to cut this off and come back again on next Wednesday and talk about what's going on. Like I always say every Wednesday night, we got so much content. There is no reason why you don't have anything to say because I can't make this up. It
Mm-mm.
looks like they usually start stuff on Monday. So on Tuesday, I'm like, okay, I know exactly what we're going to talk about. Wednesday, we good to go, but usually drop something for us to talk about. But I'm
Mm.
like, y'all keep hope alive, folks. Don't forget to get out and go vote. Early voting in Texas has started yesterday. Get out, go vote. Ladies, if you're married, make sure you get all your marriage certificate. If you've been married more than one time, take your stuff, have your information with you so that way they can't say anything. Take your
Well,
information with.
I don't think that's passed yet, but as sarcasm, I will be having mine with me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm not taking no chances. It hasn't passed yet, but
I've got to take like a buttload of shit. I've been married a couple of times. I do have my birth certificate, but I'm like, do I take the marriage license and the divorce decree? It's like when I opened up my bank account, I brought so much stuff. They thought I was like a fraud or something. Paul's like, you probably
are
scared, and
you
they almost didn't open
Elizabeth
my account.
Taylor?
Huh?
Are you like Elizabeth Taylor?
Not close. What? Not close. Not quite, but close. No, just kidding. Not that bad.
Well,
Yeah.
you definitely gonna have to make sure you take your stuff with you when this stuff passes. And y'all don't forget, if you have that old license in Texas, please update it. You got to May 7th, I believe, to have it updated. If you don't have your license updated, then guess what? You're not gonna be able to go to no federal buildings and they are not gonna let you fly. So please, sir, please, ma'am, make sure you get that taken care of. And we will see you next week on Let's Talk About Politics on Wednesday, y'all. Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night, guys.